All right, today we're jumping into one of the greatest intellectual detective stories of all time. We're talking about a 200-year-old hunt for a lost people. A people whose language and genes literally shaped half the world, all the way from Ireland to India.
So, let's kick things off with a question for you. Take a look at these three languages: English, Russian, and Hindi. I mean, on the surface, they seem about as different as you can get, right? But what if I told you they share a deep, hidden connection?
The answer? Well, it's the ghost of a single, ancient language. All three of them are distant descendants, kind of like grandchildren, of one single mother tongue that was spoken thousands and thousands of years ago. And figuring this out isn't just about solving some old puzzle. It actually reveals these deep, prehistoric connections that link together the cultures of Europe, Iran, and northern India.
And believe it or not, this whole mystery, this entire case, was officially kicked off way back in 1786. There was this British judge in India, Sir William Jones, and he noticed these just shocking similarities between ancient languages like Latin, Greek, and Sanskrit. And he had this brilliant idea. They must have all sprung from some common source. And with that, the hunt was on.
So that one single observation launched a quest that would last for 2 centuries, a search to find the people who actually spoke this lost language, a people we now call the Proto-Indo-Europeans.
So who were these people? The first thing you've got to understand is that the Proto-Indo-Europeans, or PIE for short, aren't some kind of vague guess. They are a scientific reconstruction. Now, they didn't leave behind any books or giant monuments, but they did leave clues, and by comparing all of their linguistic children, we can actually reverse engineer their world.
And our first big set of forensic clues comes from this really cool field called linguistic paleontology, which is basically a fancy way of saying we're going to build a whole world just from forgotten words.
So, how does this work? Well, linguists basically acted like detectives. They found words that are shared across the whole language family, words like father or cow, and used them to rebuild the PIE vocabulary. And this vocabulary, it acts like a cultural fingerprint, telling us what they saw, what they did, and even what kind of tech they had.
And what they found, it creates this incredible suspect profile. For instance, they had words for horse and cow, which points to a society of animal herders. A word for snow pretty much rules out a tropical homeland. But the real smoking guns, the absolute game changers, were the words for wheeled vehicles, words like wheel and axle.
And this right here, this is our first huge break in the case. See, wheeled vehicles only show up in the archaeological record around 4000 BCE. So that means the unified Proto-Indo-European language simply could not have existed before then. This one fact becomes the central problem in the whole debate about where they came from.
Okay, so with this linguistic profile in hand, the search was on for a real-world culture that matched the description. And for decades, the investigation basically stalled, focusing on 2 main suspects. On one side, you had the Anatolian hypothesis. This was pushed by the archaeologist Colin Renfrew, and he argued the language spread nice and peacefully out of Anatolia, that's modern-day Turkey, around 7000 BCE, along with the very first farmers. But on the other side, you had the steppe hypothesis from Marija Gimbuzas. She argued for a homeland on the huge grasslands of Ukraine and Russia, around 4500 BCE, spread by horse-riding warriors.
And this, right here, is the absolute heart of the conflict that stumped everyone. The Anatolian theory was powerful, it had the spread of farming on its side, but its timeline was just all wrong. 7000 BCE is thousands of years too early for that wheel and wagon vocabulary. The steppe theory, though, it was a perfect match for the words. The only problem was, for decades, archaeologists just couldn't find any clear proof of a massive migration from the steppe.
So the whole thing was just stuck, deadlocked. You had the linguists with their words versus the archaeologists with their pots and bones. The case needed a new kind of evidence to blow it wide open. And, well, it got one.
I mean, for 50 years, scholars were at a total impasse. What was the more important clue, the words or the spread of agriculture? There was just no way to decide.
And then a new tool came along that changed everything. I'm talking about a complete revolution in the field, the study of ancient DNA. For the first time ever, scientists could act like genetic detectives, tracking the movements of ancient people directly from their skeletons.
And in 2015, they found the smoking gun. For real. A landmark study looked at skeletons from a new culture that appeared in Germany after 3000 BC, known as the corded ware. And they found that a whopping 75% of their DNA, their ancestry, came directly from those steppe pastoralists, a group called the Yamnaya.
I mean, this was it. The proof. A massive migration from the steppe right into the heart of Europe wasn't just a theory anymore. It was a genetic fact. The steppe hypothesis had won. Case closed, right? Well, not quite. There was one last, really nagging paradox.
Yeah, this incredible genetic triumph actually created a new, much more subtle mystery. It solved the main part of the puzzle, for sure. But one crucial piece just wouldn't fit.
Okay, so here's the thing that just didn't make sense. We know from linguistics that the very first branch to split off from the Indo-European family tree was Anatolian, spoken by folks like the Hittites. So if the Yamnaya from the steppe were the originals, the Hittites should have been full of steppe DNA, right? But when scientists actually tested their bones, they had none. Zero. Zip. How is that even possible?
This massive contradiction forced everyone back to the drawing board, and what they came up with is this brilliant hybrid hypothesis. It goes something like this. What if the ultimate homeland wasn't actually on the steppe, but just south of it, in the Caucasus region? From there, one group split off really early and headed south into Anatolia. Those are our Hittites. But another group went north, onto the steppe, mixed with the local hunters there, and they became the Yamnaya. And it was that group that launched the huge expansion into Europe and Asia.
And just like that, this new model snaps all the pieces into place. It's beautiful, really. It explains why the Hittites are in Anatolia but don't have steppe DNA, and why all the later Indo-European speakers do. The case was finally solved, an original homeland in the south, with a secondary homeland on the steppe that acted as the launch pad for the main expansion.
So that solves the where, but it still kind of leaves us with the how. I mean, what was it about this culture that made it so incredibly successful? It turns out it wasn't just about technology. It was a whole cultural and ideological toolkit.
And you can see this cultural DNA, if you will, even in their religion. Using that same comparative method, linguists figured out the name of their chief god was something like Deus Vter, which literally means sky father. Now, does that sound familiar at all? It should. It's the direct linguistic ancestor of the Greek Zeus Pater, the Roman Jupiter, and even Dyash Pitru from ancient India. The exact same god, carried across entire continents.
So, when you boil it all down, the story of the Proto-Indo-Europeans is this incredible tale of movement and mixing, a mystery solved by putting together clues from words, from ancient pots, and now from our very own genes. And it leaves us with one final, pretty exciting question. After cracking a 200-year-old cold case, what other secrets of our own deep past is this incredible new science about to unlock?